The Wadsworth estate was magnificent in the daylight. Sprawling gardens, towering stone walls, and windows like eyes that watched you as you passed. But when Clara arrived that evening, the mansion seemed dark and foreboding, like a haunted relic from another time. It was almost as though it had been waiting for her, the way the wind howled through the trees and the shadows shifted in the corners of the house. The butler greeted her stiffly, his cold eyes not matching the nervous tremor in his voice. "Detective, I can assure you, nothing unusual has happened here." He stepped aside, allowing her to enter. Clara's gaze flicked over the room. The house was too perfect, too well kept, and the silence? It was unnerving. She could almost feel the walls closing in on her as she moved through the mansion, observing every detail. The housekeeper, a frail woman who had worked for the family for years, offered little information. And the gardener was the most interesting of all. He spoke in riddles, his eyes darting nervously. It wasn't until Clara ventured into the library that she discovered something truly strange. Behind a large, ornate tapestry, she found a hidden door. It creaked open with a groan that seemed to echo through the room. Inside, the space was filled with old paintings, family portraits, and letters, some yellowed with age. It was a private sanctuary, a place Grace must have gone when she wanted to escape from the pressures of her perfect life. Then Clara found the letters. They were addressed to Grace, but not from any admirer. The handwriting was familiar, unsettlingly so. It was from a man named Edward Blackwood, a former suitor who had once been obsessed with Grace. The letters spoke of love and regret, but also something darker. Threats, promises to make Grace his no matter the cost. Edward had disappeared years ago, his sudden exit a mystery that had never been solved. The tension in Clara's chest tightened. This was no simple case of a missing heiress. Something had gone terribly wrong. That night, Clara returned to the estate, unable to shake the feeling that time was running out. As she prowled the grounds, she noticed something unsettling. The lights in the study were still on. The butler had claimed to have gone to bed hours ago, yet the flicker of candlelight through the curtains told a different story. Her instincts kicked in. Clara crept closer to the window, her breath shallow, and then she saw it, a shadow moving behind the curtains. She froze. The figure inside was unmistakable. It was Evelyn. Why was she here? What was she hiding? Clara entered the house silently, her heart hammering in her chest. She found Evelyn standing in the hidden room, staring down at something on the floor. A glint caught Clara's eye, a small silver locket. She approached cautiously. "Evelyn," Clara called out softly, her voice steady. "What are you doing here?" Evelyn turned, her face pale but determined. "You have to understand," she said, her voice trembling. It was all for her. "I did it for Grace." Clara's heart sank as Evelyn reached into her coat, pulling out an old, familiar-looking photograph of Grace. But there was something else in Evelyn's eyes, fear, shame. The truth was darker than Clara could have imagined. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," Evelyn confessed, tears welling up. I thought if I made her disappear, no one would ever find out about Edward. But I was wrong. Grace, she's gone." The air seemed to thicken with realization. Evelyn wasn't hiding from someone. She had been hiding the truth. She had been the one to send Grace away in an effort to protect their family name. The letters were real, but they were only part of the story. Grace had discovered the truth about her sister's involvement with Edward Blackwood, and it had driven her to flee. But Grace wasn't dead. The locket was the key. Clara's sharp eyes caught the delicate engraving inside, a date and a hidden location. It was a place Grace had mentioned in the letters. Clara knew exactly where to go. The next morning, Clara found Grace, safe, though shaken, hidden away in a small cabin by the lake, far from the chaos of the city. Evelyn's guilt had driven her to create the lie of her disappearance, but Grace had staged it herself, wanting to escape not just the legacy of her family, but the controlling grip of her own sister. Evelyn was arrested for her actions, but there was a deep sadness in Clara's heart. She had solved the mystery, but the cost was high. In the end, it wasn't just a case of missing persons. It was a story of love, loss, and betrayal that had twisted into something unrecognizable. As Grace and Evelyn reconciled, Clara stepped away, her job done. But something stayed with her. The reminder that even in the most beautiful homes, darkness can lurk behind the walls. The detective sighed, content that the case was solved, but forever changed by the complex emotions of the people she'd encountered. As the fog slowly began to lift outside her office window, she felt a sense of clarity and a new kind of charm in knowing that some mysteries, though painful, could still find their resolution.